Clerk will call the roll.
Alley. Argabright. Billinger. Blasey. Blue. Bowers. Bowser. Clays from Saline. Clays from Sedgwick. Clifford. Corson. Dietrich. Erickson. Fag. Fascudo. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Holscher. Klemp. Cluse. Masterson. Murphy. Owens. Peck. Peterson. Petty. Rose. Reichman. Schmidt. Schallenberger. Shane. Starnes. Sykes. Thomas. Thompson. Titus. Tyson. Ware. Warren.
Senators and guests, please rise and give prayerful attention to our guest chaplain this afternoon, Father Will Stever, and he is from the St. Teresa Catholic Church in Hutchinson and is a guest of Senator Blasey.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, we come to you this day with gratitude. We give you thanks for this great state. On this, the 164th anniversary of Kansas being admitted to the Union. We have this land that some call the heartland, but that we call home, and we glorify you for this gift of home. We also give you thanks, Father, for all of our elected officials on the local, state, and federal level. The democracy that we enjoy is itself a gift from you, and we glorify you for each person who selflessly gives his or her life over in service to the good of the people. We now ask you, Father, to send your Holy Spirit down upon all of the officials gathered here today. May the decisions they make be guided by wisdom and justice, and may each person have a desire to lead us with integrity towards true peace. May these officials always bear in mind the God-given rights of each person who they govern. We also ask you, Father, for your Holy Spirit to come down upon all the people of this state and country. May we always live in accord with the incredible dignity that you bestow upon ourselves and our neighbors. May we be a people who, in charity, follow the just laws of this land and always seek to glorify you here in Kansas, in the United States of America, and throughout the world. We ask this as we ask all things in the name of Jesus Christ, your Son, our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we have a series of personal privileges today as we honor some people. It's a little unusual, but I'm going to take the first personal privilege myself to honor and give tribute to my friend, the late Representative Marvin Robinson. And I'd have the reader please read the tribute.
Representative Robinson served with the 35th House District with honor and integrity. Born to Virtus and Marvin Robinson, he graduated from Emporia State University and served with distinction in the U.S. Navy. Marvin served the community throughout his life, and he was known as the mayor of Quindaro for his dedication to preserving the Quindaro ruined town site and ensuring its place on the National Registry of Historic Places. The Kansas Senate extends its sincere condolences to the Robinson family.
And so the reason I'm doing this, he served in the House, and he was, those that know the Bible, kind of an Esther, right? He raised up for such a time as this. He was there not even a full term, and he made a difference. He made a mark on Kansas that many of us will not make in our careers. And so we're honored to have some of his family and guests with us. I'd like to just recognize then Reverend David Flanoy. If you would stand so they know who you are. His brother, Pastor Harold Dwight, and his lovely wife, Peggy. His sister, Tasha D. Cogs, and three of his cousins, former Representative Broderick Henderson. Broderick's been around long enough, we served together in the House. And that's been a minute. And Tony Campbell and John De La Holly. Thank you. We're honored to have you here. I got to tell you, Marvin Robinson was probably the bravest politician I've ever known, right? He stood against some just horrible comments and backlash and did the right thing. And I still remember when he sat in my office, and I had to ask him because I wasn't sure I had that kind of courage. I said, "Why'd you do that?" And he said, "I went back to my church and told them what I was up against." And I said, "What do I do?" And he said, they said, "You know what you got to do." And I just did it. So very impressed with that man, and we are going to miss him. Thank you for being here in the Kansas Senate. If the college, if you would welcome them, I'd really appreciate it. We will now stand at ease as we transition one group for the next point of privilege. Second point of personal privilege, Chair recognizes the Senator from Johnson, Senator Shane.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I am from Miami County, but that's okay. I rise today on this day, our state's birthday, and joining our great union because we want to pause and recognize the resilience, the hard work, the integrity, and the self-sufficiency of Kansans and that tradition that continues throughout the ages. Today, we have the opportunity to celebrate the hard work and creativity of a very special Kansan, Mrs. Gail Radke. Though she's been writing poems, stories, and lyrics throughout her entire life, Gail just published her first children's novel, which all of you have received a copy of today, Rock on Rachel, An Incredible Flint Hills Journey. This book celebrates our great state, its geology, its natural resources, its Native American history, our state's great traditions, and many important figures throughout our entire history, all while teaching Gail Radke's favorite themes of kindness, curiosity, respect, and courage. As we celebrate Kansas, we applaud the role that special individuals like Gail play in honoring and shining a bright light on our beautiful state. Kansas children will no doubt learn to love our great state and create a better future because of the efforts of Gail Radke. If you all could thank you and welcome Gail today to the Senate chamber.
Introduction of original motions and Senate resolutions. Clerk will read.
Senate Resolution number 1705 by Senator Erickson. A resolution congratulating and commending the members of the 2025 Kansas Teacher of the Year team.
Chair recognizes the senator from Sedgwick, Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the reader read?
Whereas the Kansas State Department of Education sponsors the Kansas Teacher of the Year program, which identifies, recognizes, and utilizes representatives of excellent teaching in the elementary and secondary classrooms of the state. And whereas the mission of the program is to build and utilize a network of exemplary teachers who are leaders in the improvement of schools, student performance, and the teaching profession. And whereas 2 teachers, 1 elementary and 1 secondary, in each of the state's 4 United States congressional districts were selected as finalists for recognition as the Kansas Teacher of the Year, with the award recipient being chosen from among the 8 finalists. And whereas the Kansas Teacher of the Year is awarded with the Hubbard Foundation Kansas Teacher of the Year Ambassadorship, which enables the person selected to devote significant time during the 2nd semester to activities supporting the mission of the program. The 2025 Kansas Teacher of the Year and finalists were honored at an awards banquet on September 28, 2024. All members received a cash award as well as mementos of the event. And whereas the Kansas Teacher of the Year is nominated to represent Kansas in the National Teacher of the Year program, a project of the Council of the Chief State School Officers presented by Voya Financial. Now, therefore be it resolved by the Senate of the State of Kansas that we congratulate and commend the members of the 2025 Kansas Teacher of the Year team.
Senator from Sedgwick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Body, today is a very special day. Those of us on the Education Committee look forward to it every session, and it's one of the highlights for us as members of that committee. Today we honor hardworking teachers from across our state who day in and day out give their best to the students and love and care for those students. And we just came from a joint meeting with the House Education Committee where each of the finalists for Teacher of the Year gave their inspiring talk and really highlighted what makes them special. And I'm going to let their respective senators share more about that. But I want to just share a little bit about the importance and how elite this award is. I did a little digging into the history of the Kansas Teacher of the Year, and the best I could tell, the first Kansas Teacher of the Year was Edith Means back in 1955. Since then, there have been 62 Kansas Teachers of the Year. Edith, however, not only was the first, she was also a finalist for the National Teacher of the Year. So she set that bar very high, and our teachers every year since then have not disappointed in keeping that high bar. So 62 have gone on since then. 5 of those 62 have been finalists for National Teacher of the Year, and 2 have actually been from Kansas National Teacher of the Year, most recently in 2020. So I want to say congratulations, and on behalf of all students and families, your fellow colleagues, the staff in your buildings, thank you for what you do, and congratulations. Mr. President. You can clap. You can clap.
You'll get another opportunity.
Mr. President, I now yield to the Senator from Reno, Senator Murphy.
Senator from Reno, Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Whitney, would you stand? Whitney Aves is a dedicated family and consumer sciences teacher from Hutchinson with a passion for teaching valuable life skills to her students with 4 career pathways. Aves has made a profound impact on countless students' lives throughout her 8 years of teaching at Hutchinson High School. Thank you, Whitney. With that, I yield to the senator from, where is it? From Butler, Senator Fagg.
Senator from Butler, Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm really excited today. My teacher comes from McPherson, Kansas. So as we know, we had new district lineups. I haven't had one of these for 5 years, Megan, so you're number 1. So, Senators, as we sit here and work with challenges and in a complex world and a lot of hard things that go on every day, this is a time to celebrate. This is the future standing over here, and I would say thank you for what you do. So to tell you a little bit about my teacher, Megan Stuckey, she's an empathetic and wholehearted elementary school educator who brings 18 years of experience to her classroom. She currently teaches 5th grade at Roosevelt Elementary School in McPherson and has taught 3rd grade through 5th grade throughout her education career. Megan has taught in a variety of classroom configurations, including 4th and 5th grade multi-age, looping, whatever that is, and straight grade level education. So with that, Megan, it makes me proud to be at Kansas, and I'd like to give you a great applause from the Kansas Senate floor to remember. So.
Would you like to yield, Senator?
Yes, Mr. President, I would. At this time, I'd like to yield to the good senator from Sedgwick, Senator Peterson.
Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will Olivia please stand? There, I can see her. Olivia Wingard is a 10-year veteran teacher. She presently teaches 2nd grade at Cooper Elementary in Oaklawn, a very economically challenged area of my district. She's deeply committed to equitable opportunities for all the students. This school holds a special spot, as when I first visited this school, the students were so respectful, and it's one of the most economically challenged areas in my district. They all loved reading. They were excited back in the day about a new library being built. Imagine going to an elementary school and the students being excited about a library. Reading has long been a passion of this school. I contacted her principal to get a few comments. She sent back a whole page. I won't read them. One of them is, though, that Olivia is a student-centered, passionate, is an advocate for everyone, and is driven to ensure academic outcomes. She empowers students to pursue their lifelong dreams and loves each and every person who crosses her path. Olivia inspires all of us to be better and elevates our profession to new levels. That's from her principal. That's impressive. The school is impressive. And Olivia, thank you for what you do. I would like to yield to the, yes, thank you. I would like to yield to the senator from Johnson, Senator Gossage.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Gossage.
Thank you, Senator Peterson. Would Ryan Mellick stand? Ryan Mellick is an industrial arts teacher at Bonner Springs High School and has been with the USD 204 district for the last 10 years. Ryan has been teaching ever since he graduated from Central Missouri State University, Go Mules, in 2007, which is Bachelor of Science in Technology Education. Ryan has taught a variety of industrial art classes, space and aeronautics, architecture, automotive, theater technology, and carpentry. Ryan, we salute you. And now I would like to yield to Senator Schmidt of Shawnee.
Senator from Shawnee, Senator Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. President. Benjamin, can you please stand up? Benjamin Eckelberry is a 1st grade teacher at Tecumseh North Elementary School. Benjamin has received a Bachelor of Arts in Elementary Education, as well as an early childhood endorsement from Midland University in Fremont, Nebraska, and above all else, values his connections with his students as an educator and strives to cultivate a classroom where students feel safe, loved, and capable of tackling any challenges in their way. And I'm looking forward to joining you for a Friday reading circle some Friday soon. Thank you. And with that, I yield to the senator from... With that, I yield to the senator from Sedgwick, Senator Pascadeau.
Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Pascadeau.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the Senator Schmidt. It is my great pleasure to acknowledge another Teacher of the Year, Educator of the Year. Eric Stone is the Director of Bands, vocal music teacher, and the advancement via individual determination. He's an elective teacher and site coordinator at Gordon Parks Academy in Wichita, Kansas, where I reside, Mr. President. He teaches 5th grade through 8th grade students since graduating with his Bachelor of Music education with an emphasis in special instrumental music education and a master's degree in music education from Wichita State University. Mr. Stone has had a tremendous success working with students of all ages. Well, Mr. President, you know, I've got to ask a question. So I emailed Eric Stone and I asked him what motivated him to become an educator. Mr. President, he sent me an email this long. However, I trimmed it down a little bit, and especially after joining Senator Renee Erickson in the Education Committee today, and I heard your story. I think everybody around me, we all teared up to hear the story about Tia. So touching, Mr. President. So when I asked Eric what motivated him, he responded that he was motivated. What motivated him to become an educator, he stated that he grew up being groomed for education. Growing up in Turner United School District number 202 in Kansas City, Kansas, he watched his grandmother's passion for education, who served as an active school board member, and eventually, Mr. President, she became the board president. And, Mr. President, she even handed Eric Stone his high school diploma. And I mean, you can't beat that. But then he went on to share his mother's passion. His mother, he observed his mother, who is her journey of being a nurse. And he said, we all know that we should all agree that nurses in school are the unsung heroes. We don't acknowledge the school nurses enough in our schools. Eric was also fortunate to be in the classrooms led by educators that showed him what it meant to create opportunities for all students and empowering them to make moves in their lives that would unlock hidden potential and possibly change the trajectory of their lives. And then Eric says, Mr. President, as I'm closing here as well, in the end, no matter what part of the day you visit Eric's classroom, you will leave knowing 2 things: that he loves his students and he believes that they can do anything. Mr. President and colleagues, please give Eric Stone a round of applause. And Mr. President, with that, I yield to the gentlelady from Johnson, Senator Dinah Sykes.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Fascadeau. Amber, would you please stand? Amber Pagan is in her 20th year of teaching, and as I look at her, I need to know what your beauty regimen is. But her 9th year at Shawnee Mission and her 6th year teaching pre-K at Neiman. She holds endorsements in early childhood English for speakers of other language and reading. She has been involved with NEA Shawnee Mission for 8 years, has held the office of elementary representative, secretary, and is now serving as vice president. Ms. Amber is passionate about early childhood education and works to ensure that the caregivers have the tools that they need to help their children. Ms. Tenbrink, the principal at Neiman, says, Ms. Amber is the teacher at Neiman that any family and parents all want their children to have. And she partners with the families and the kids so that those kids are coming home excited about learning. But one of her former students, who is currently a 3rd grader, says it best: Miss Amber taught us fun ways to do learning, and I wish I had her for all of my classes. So if we can get a Please congratulate Miss Amber Pagan. And with that, I yield to the senator from Leavenworth, Senator Klemp.
Senator from Leavenworth, Senator Klemp.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Ms. Sykes, Senator Sykes. Ms. Anstein, would you please stand? I'm honored to be able to share and highlight the accomplishments of our Teacher of the Year. Kansas's Teacher of the Year is Ms. Elizabeth Anstein. Her path to education is notable. She spent nearly 2 decades in senior corporate marketing roles and volunteered with Junior Achievement in Kansas City's inner city schools. Following her corporate career, she dedicated herself to extensively volunteering in the Olathe School District where her children attended. She assisted in blue ribbon applications, initiated a Battle of the Books district-wide competition, established mentoring programs, provided booster club leadership, and participated in the site councils. Anstein's educational journey is a testament to her commitment to lifelong learning. For over a decade, she substitute taught across districts, crediting teachers with inspiring her. She earned a Bachelor's of Science in Business, educated from Fort Hays University, and a Master's in Curriculum and Instruction from the University of Kansas, further enhancing her qualifications and approach to teaching. Ms. Anstein's influence is felt through mentorship and leadership roles at Leavenworth High School in the first state of Kansas. She teaches business marketing, entrepreneurship, and finance courses and is best known for her leadership. Ms. Anstein serves as DECA advisor, cultivating an inclusive program that consistently produces internationally ranked students. She sponsors Interact to foster global understanding and plays a pivotal role on the building leadership team, developing strategies to enhance student achievement. Ms. Anstein's accomplishments include securing more than $500,000 in grant funding for her business programs and school-wide initiatives, establishing 3 additional school-based enterprises, and her ability to connect with students from diverse backgrounds. Her commitment to enhancing public education stems from her experiences and a profound desire to impact the students' lives positively. Ms. Anstein has already left an incredible mark on Leavenworth High School. Her students say, Ms. Anstein pushes beyond the limits of her job description, giving us the freedom to learn, create, and grow. She is a change maker, deeply admired for her immeasurable sense of caring and ability to see the potential in each of us. Every student deserves a teacher like Ms. Anstein. It is an honor to highlight Ms. Anstein's accomplishments. I humbly request that we stand in solidarity to recognize Ms. Anstein and the rest of the finalists for a job exceptionally done. Mr. President, I have some remarks that I will submit for the Journal.
So ordered.
I yield back to the Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Erickson.
Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move an emergency be declared, the rule suspended, and Senate Resolution 1705 be adopted by voice vote.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. We're honored to have you guys here. Congratulations on the award. We will now stand at ease as we transition to the next group. We'll return to order. We do have a recognition in the back. Former Kansas Senator and former U.S. Representative Tim Hulskamp is in the back. Welcome home. Sorry, Tim, looked like you were about to sneak out. I had to put that one in. On a point of personal privilege, Chair recognizes the Senator from Reno, Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just real quick, I just want to recognize we have a big group from Hutch Trinity up in the gallery. If you'd like to stand and wave, and appreciate you coming to see us today.
Another quick point of personal privilege, Senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to recognize that we have some county appraisers. Oh, I think there's a few still here, too. Hardcore. They've been in the building today visiting us, so I'd like to welcome the county appraisers. Thank you.
Our final point of personal privilege, Chair recognizes Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Petty.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise on a point of personal privilege to inform my colleagues that with us in the Senate today is the Wyandotte High School Bulldogs Building Architects Construction and Engineering Academy Carpentry class. These students partner with the Community Housing of Wyandotte County, which is acronym is CHWC, and co-build to collaborate and build affordable housing in the community. This not only helps the Wyandotte County community, but also gives these students an amazing hand-on education. They started with smaller things like playhouses to tiny houses, and now they're working on a full-blown home construction. So with that, I'd like to welcome their teacher, Mrs. Allison Smith. If you would stand, Allison. And with her, she has, and I'm just going to say their first names so we can go a little more quickly here. Isaac is here with us. No, Isaac is not. Jose, Theodore, Ashley, Yasmin, is Emmanuel? Yes. And Alexa are some of the students that are in the program at Wyandotte High School. Go Bulldogs. The principal at Wyandotte High School is Mary Stewart, and the superintendent of the Kansas City, Kansas Unified School District 500 is Dr. Anna Stubblefield. I congratulate them on the program that they're doing. It's a great way for them to develop the skills so they're ready to go into the workforce and be active participants in the commerce of Wyandotte County. So with that, I ask the president to spread my words on the journal and ask my colleagues to give them a round of applause.
Welcome to the Kansas Senate. For the record, I was a home builder in my previous life, so it's a skill you'll never regret having. So, welcome. We will, in just a minute, I think you're wanting to do some pictures over here, but we will then finally celebrate Kansas Day as we sing. So I'm going to recognize to start that Senator from Johnson, Senator Thomas.
Colleagues, you're welcome to, thank you, Mr. President, you're welcome to join me in singing. If you have your earplugs, the time is now. Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. How often at night, when the heavens are bright, with the light from the glittering stars. Have I stood here amazed and asked as I gaze if their glory exceeds that of ours? Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day.
All right, happy birthday to Kansas, right? Oh, Senator from Cloud, Senator Bowers.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. I think I'd be amiss if I didn't remind the body that this poem was written in Senate District 36, Smith County. I just wanted to say that. Happy Kansas Day.
All right, we're only an hour in and we finally get to start business, right? Please note references of bills and resolutions on page 1 through 3 of the calendar. Reports of standing committees. Clerk will read.
Mr. President, the Committee on Public Health and Welfare recommends that Senate Bill 63 be amended and the bill be passed as amended.
All right, we're now ready for final action. So this is our first final action vote for those. And this is the two bills we debated yesterday. On this roll call, we will take the following. The bills on page 4, SB 10 and SB 35. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 10, an act concerning property taxation, and Senate Bill 35, an act concerning property taxation.
Clerk will call the roll.
Alley. Argabright. Billinger. Lazy. Blue. Bowers. Bowser. Clays from Saline. Clays from Sedgwick. Clifford. Corson. Dietrich. Erickson. Fagg. Fascudo. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Hulsher. Klemp. Cluse. Masterson. Murphy. Owens. Peck. Peterson. Petty. Rose. Reichman. Schmidt. Schallenberger. Shane. Starnes. Sykes. Thomas. Thompson. Titus. Tyson. Ware. Warren.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Senator from Sherman, Senator Billinger. Senator from Barton, Senator Blue. Does any senator wish to explain their vote? Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to explain my vote on Senate Bill 10.
Please continue.
I vote no on Senate Bill 10. I agree that a few of the exemptions for personal property taxes in this bill should be passed, in particular exempting electric personal assistive mobility devices, and motorized wheelchairs. However, I believe Kansas taxes must be equitable. Many of these exemptions will be given to those individuals who can afford golf carts, off-road vehicles, marine equipment, and aircraft. I'm especially concerned because I know the interest in reducing the property tax burden for our constituents. The approximate $3 million cost in state general funds does not include the additional impacts on local government revenues. Quoting from the fiscal note, local governments that levy a property tax would also receive less revenue. However, the amount of reduced property tax revenue was not estimated by the department. I need a better understanding of how this will affect my communities. Those with golf courses, lakes, reservoirs, or airport hangars may be especially affected, and also how those revenues might be replaced. Taking revenue away from our local governments without replacing those funds is going in the wrong direction.
Senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to speak with county appraisers who brought us Senate Bill 10, and I had the opportunity to speak to some county clerks, and I know it's not across the state, it's a mixed bag, but they're asking for this bill. This bill would alleviate some of the taxes, the burden of collecting the taxes, which is more of a cost to taxpayers than what they actually bring in. A prime example was given to me from one of the counties. A senior citizen has an ATV. He pays almost $2,000 a year on his ATV, but his pickup truck, he pays $700 a year. Another county appraiser gave me the example of a senior citizen who uses their golf cart to get to the grocery store. And so there is a need for this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any further explanation? Are there any changes? Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. While the clerk is tallying, for those that are new, and this is our last, you can give up to a 2-minute explanation of your vote, or 200 words can be submitted to the journal, or both. When we get into that, we will start running a clock if we have a lot of people that want to opine, but just for the new ones, you have the right to explain your vote at the end of the final action. "37 having voted in favor and 3 opposed to the passage of Senate Bill 10, 38 in favor and 2 opposed to the passage of Senate Bill 35. These measures, having received their constitutional majority, are hereby declared passed." Chair recognizes the Majority Leader from Sedgwick, Senator Blasey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move an emergency be declared, the rule suspended, and Senate Bill 63 be advanced to final action, subject to amendment, debate, and roll call.
For the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. No. Motion carries. Division has been requested. All those in favor, please stand. Please be seated. All those opposed, please stand. "29 in favor, 9 opposed. The motion to advance passes." To carry the bill, Senate Bill 63, Chair recognizes the senator from Johnson, Senator Gossage.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move we adopt the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Report's adopted.
Mr. President, Senate Bill 63 is a bill we've heard the last 2 years, and it enacts the Help Not Harm Act to prohibit healthcare providers from giving chemical and surgical intervention to a child whose gender identity is inconsistent with the child's sex. It authorizes a civil cause of action against healthcare providers for providing such treatment and restricts the use of state funds to promote gender transitioning. It prohibits professional liability insurance from covering damages for healthcare providers that provide this gender transition medical intervention to children, and it mandates professional discipline against the healthcare provider who performs such treatments. Mr. President, of the troubled children who are put on this path of chemical and surgical intervention for their gender dysphoria, statistics show us that over 80% of them are suffering from autism, ADHD, depression, anxiety, and other eating disorders, PTSD, trauma histories, OCD, and often victims of sexual assault and abuse. Yet 72% of them are girls, often influenced by social media, sometimes going for therapy for other issues, but being convinced that they are gender confused. Despite 80% of them who reach a point of acceptance of their bodies, if they are allowed to go through natural puberty, there's a troubling trend of doctors and mental health experts who are overlooking the underlying issues and putting these kids on assembly line to so-called gender-affirming care, which may begin with therapy, but often this is the only course of action that is offered. Parents and teens report that they were pressured during these short therapies, often only 1 or 2 hour session, and told things like, do you want a living son or a dead daughter? Not mentioning transitioners, nor the full impact of the side effects of this course of action. They often will begin with experimental puberty blockers, formerly used for premature puberty for a very short duration, and then those youngsters who maybe started at 7 or 8 years old in premature puberty, then were allowed to go through normal puberty. However, in 2022, the FDA gave a black box warning, its strictest warning, that evidence of brain swelling and loss of vision were allotted to these puberty blockers. Then 99% of those youngsters who were put on puberty blockers of the time transitioned to, and they are then transitioned over to the wrong sex hormones, often as young as 13 years old. So these do not have FDA approval for pediatric gender purposes. They're known to cause sexual dysfunction and sterilization, weakening of the bones, osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease, abdominal pain, vaginal atrophy, and lacerations. The next progression, about 50% of youngsters are removed, have their healthy breasts removed, and sex organs removed as well. We had testimony in committee about a young woman whose breasts were removed at age 15. This transgender path is a difficult one, often accompanied by chronic pain, infections, difficulty urinating, lifelong injections and appointments, turns them into, they also see early menopause symptoms and worsening mental health. I was asked, aren't there other countries that have blocked this or at least take a pause? There are. We've heard from Denmark, Finland, Sweden, the UK, and other European countries. In fact, in the UK recently, this was March 12th of 2024, they released a policy document stating it stopped prescribing of puberty blockers for minors and will instead focus on psychosocial and psychological support. In 2020, the National Institution of Health in the UK published 2 systematic reviews of the evidence, one for puberty blockers, the other for wrong sex hormones. Both reviews found that the evidence is of very low quality due to the risk of bias and other methodological problems. And finally, in an independent review of England's main gender service, they found that the practices were not safe due to part of the existence of an affirmative model that actually originated in the USA. Finland has recommendations of treatment as minors following concerns raised by the gender clinics, and in 2019, their review of the evidence by experts found that the research purported to show mental health benefits for hormonal interventions was unreliable to severe methodological problems. We go on to Sweden, where the Board of Health emphasized the continued lack of reliable science evidence concerning the efficacy and the safety of both puberty blockers and wrong sex hormones. The evidence on treatment efficacy and safety is still insufficient. In fact, they gave the score a 0. And then in Norway, we had a healthcare watchdog who had a review of the country's pediatric gender services following complaints by patients and parents about harm. We've seen a marked increase in referrals to the specialized healthcare services in Norway for teenagers, as well as in many other Western countries. Nobody knows the reason. The stability of the gender dysphoria of this teenager is not known, and the evidence of long-term effects of this treatments for these young people is insufficient. Mr. President, we've also found that just recently, as of 2 days ago, Australia is now forbidding these so-called treatments or interventions. And we can now add, as of yesterday, another country that is forbidding this, and that country would be the United States, by order of executive order of President Trump. So we also have concerns from the gay community. Jamie Reed testified. You may recall that she is the whistleblower from Missouri who worked at a gender clinic, defining herself as a lesbian Democrat, and said, I went in there to help people, and then I realized it's actually harming people. She testified to 5 or 6 young women who would come in together holding hands like they're going in to get their ears pierced and start down this path of gender transition. Mr. President, children are not a social experiment. They're being ushered down a conveyor belt to a lifelong pharmaceutical dependencies.
Are there questions for the senator from Johnson? Senator from Johnson, Senator Holscher.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are a couple of members who have amendments coming. I would ask that we can pass over this bill and return to it once those amendments arrive.
We'll stand at ease for just a second. Do you have an ETA on the amendment?
I don't see her here, so.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sachs.
Mr. President, I know they're going through the final stages, but I do not have an ETA.
I think we will continue with the debate and see if they have time to bring those amendments up. Are there further questions or comments? Did you have more comments, Senator from Johnson, or were you just?
Yes, but we're only allowed to speak twice, correct?
You are, yeah. Since you just gave me a notice that there's an amendment, I won't hold that one against you. Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Haley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do appreciate the discussion. I know that there will be other amendments. I do have an amendment, and I have turned it in.
Sorry, what was that?
I said I do have an amendment, and I have turned it in already.
Okay, do you have an ETA?
It is here.
Oh, it's here, okay, then let's do it. What's the number on it?
Mr. President, it is 0890.
Senator, would you like to have it read, or would you like to explain it?
I think it'll be better if it's read.
Okay.
Mr. President, it's very short.
Clerk will read.
Mr. President, I move to amend Senate Bill 63 as amended by Senate Committee on page 1 in line 19 by striking, quote, 18, and instead inserting, quote, 14.
Senator from Wyandotte.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank the reader. It is, part of this discussion for me has been at what age do we have the ability for a child to be able to make decisions for him or herself regarding, their psychosexuality, physicality. We have in place many guidelines currently in Kansas law as to what that age might be. In many of our statutes, the age of the ability to seek mental health care for a person is the age of 14. And a 14-year-old can, without a parent or parental or guardian's consent seek mental health care and from professional sources. And this would then, if this amendment were adopted, would change from 18, as it said, which is set for adult, for someone at age 14 to begin to continue whatever path they feel that they're embracing regarding their psychosexuality, as they're able to do now, independent of definitely adult supervision or counsel, to do so instead at 14. I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Other questions for the Senator from Wyandotte? Senator from Johnson, Senator Gossage.
Mr. Chair, I would just point out that one of the minor changes that were made from last year on page 2 does not forbid anyone to go in for psychological services. Just forbids the puberty blockers, the medical or chemical interference. But I would also point out that many of our laws protecting children and minors are someone under the age of 18. Age 18 is considered a consenting adult.
Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I do have a question for the carrier of the amendment. What is the rationale for age 14? Is there some scientific basis for a 14-year-old being able to make such life-altering decisions?
Senator from Wyandotte.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, senators, both senators from Sedgwick and from Johnson. So I just did a little research, frankly, on what is our current law for when someone's seeking some mental health or other, what kind of parameters they were. And I didn't know what the age was, but I just looked online, found out what it is in Kansas and many other states, and they are able, people are able at age 14 to seek out professional help, assistance, without a parent or guardian. If the bridge from that evaluation was a true finding, a mental health finding of true gender dysphoria, and the child/adult, I don't quite know how to categorize them here, were to have to take that one step further, if at age 14, 15, the mental health professionals concurred that it was a true example of dysphoria, then I would not want to see them being barred because of procedural or statutory requirement because of the age of being under 18.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. More of a comment than a question here. President Trump's executive order actually went for blocking these type surgeries and puberty blockers for anyone under age 19, recognizing that we should actually be protecting even older people. As we well know from research, the brain's not fully developed until about age 25. And so these puberty blockers can have profound effects on development of people, brain development, things of that nature. And so I can't support this amendment, lowering it, even if it has any statutory basis, because we're actually talking about the health of young people and the development of young people. And so I'm very, very hesitant to lower the age limit that we have on this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Barton, Senator Blue.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate my previous colleagues' comments on that. I have a couple questions for the body to think about when we are voting on this amendment and why I oppose it. How old do you have to be to get a tattoo in the state of Kansas? How old do you have to be to vote in the state of Kansas? How about to even go tanning in a tanning bed in the state of Kansas, to go buy a pack of cigarettes or go buy something to drink at the liquor store? So the age of 14, you can change your gender, but you can't have a drink at the bar till you're 21. Come on, people. I oppose this amendment.
For the questions for the senator from Wyandotte. Seeing none, Senator, you may close on your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the comments and the insights from various of our colleagues regarding this. I'm thinking about this, this bill long and hard, and frankly, am somewhat supportive of the underlying bill. I just don't want us to unintentionally put into place a conflict where we do have very genuine evaluations that can be made for those children that have a genuine conflict and they need to have medical assistance or professional medical assistance to apply to it. So 14 was the age that I did find from what Kansas's current laws are for that state of mental evaluations that can be had without outside help. So I bring this amendment and hope that it will be adopted. I move the amendment.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. No. Motion fails. Back on the bill. Senator Haley, do you have more?
I do. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, continuing this discussion, I have another amendment.
Is it here?
It has been turned in.
Yep. What's your number?
It's the other one. Let me see. I think it's 0891. I'm not sure. This is the wrong paper. But it's the other amendment under my signature. There are only two. We've done one. We did. It's not 0890. It's the other one.
We'll get it straightened out.
Okay. It is 91. That's it. Thank you. Mr.
So
President.
0891?
0891.
Very good. We'll pause that to be handed out.
Mr. President, I'm going to ask the reader to read. It's at the appropriate time.
Reader will please read the amendment.
Mr. President, I move to amend Senate Bill 63 as amended by the Senate Committee on page 1 in line 19 by striking, quote, 18 and inserting, quote, 16.
Senator Wyandotte.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a similar discussion that we've been having and some of the points that are well taken. At what age do we confer or allow children to make independent decisions without that? And some points were made. I think one senator said that one must be 18 for tattoos and a whole host of things, smoking and drinking and voting, and I concur. But one thing that is the age of consent that does pertain, I think, directly to this is the age of majority for sex or to consent to sex. Anyone under 16 that engages in sexual activity, especially with someone older than 18, it has a statutory provision in place that prohibits and criminalizes that activity. But in Kansas law and many other laws, the age of consent for physicality or sexuality, the age of consent is 16. So whatever else 16-year-olds and older cannot do still because they're not 18, like getting a tattoo or piercing and a host of other things, they can determine what they share with their own bodies. And they have that autonomy from governmental or from even parental often, as many of us are concerned about the parental involvement. So this amendment would then keep in concert or align this particular measure, Senate Bill 63, looking at the issue of the gender affirming care at the age of 16, which again is the age when girls, boys, men, women at the age of 16 can make the determination independent of governmental or even parental consent as to what they do with their own bodies at 16. And I'd be happy to stand for any questions along that line.
Questions for the Senator from Wyandotte? Seeing none. Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have a question, but I do stand in support of this amendment. I think finding the appropriate age is very important. And I think that the senator from Wyandotte has made some good arguments as to why 16 would be appropriate. And I thank him for bringing the amendment.
Further questions or comments on the Haley Amendment 2? Seeing none, you move or close on your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. And again, just for continuity's sake, especially as children or persons reach the age of majority for their pursuit of their personal sexuality without oversight or concern, and that being the age of 16, then there too, I would hope we would be consonant in that theory of what consent, of what the age of majority is for that, and put this measure at the age of 16. Move my amendment.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion fails. Back on. Senator from Johnson, is your amendment here yet? Stand at ease for just a minute, get an ETA. While we're at ease, I'll apologize to Senator Shane for saying Johnson instead of Miami when I recognized you earlier today. So we got an ETA in kind of that 10 to 15 minute run, but since we are outside of the committee we're outside of general orders, we might just do a little freshman training. So there are two postures in which we debate bills. The main one, this is actually unusual, and it was because of the timing of things for the House requested that we get this to them. We're normally under general orders, and there's no restriction on how many times you speak or how long you speak, but in this posture, where we're debating outside of that, you can speak to a question twice, and we'll track that. And that's to each question. So the bill itself is a question. The amendment is another question. So you can have 2 times on the amendment and still retain your twice on the bill. So it's just a little FYI. It's somewhat, it's not unusual or out of the ordinary. It's just not nearly as common as being in general orders. And since we're in that posture, it's more difficult to do what we would normally do under general orders, which is just pass over the bill, go to the next one, and come back. So since it's within kind of a 10-minute window, we will stand at ease until the amendment arrives. Quicker than expected. All right, we're back to business. Any further questions? Senator Johnson, Senator Holscher.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have several concerns with this bill in terms of the effect on those in the trans community who are being targeted, as well as the potential threat to medical providers and other individuals in our communities. An additional issue is the fact that we have some Kansans who are currently undergoing treatment, which would be disrupted by this bill, leaving them in a precarious situation. With that, I have an amendment.
Do you have it turned in, I assume? What's the number?
I have. The number is 0917.
Pause just a minute, get it handed out. Senator from Johnson, would you like to have it read, or would you like to explain?
Yeah, I'll just explain it.
Okay.
Essentially, this amendment would grandfather in any child who has already begun treatment while not allowing any new patients. That's it.
Are there questions for the senator from Johnson, Senator Holscher? Seeing none, you may close and move your amendment.
Thank you. I bring forward this amendment because it could cause potential, not having the amendment could cause potential ethical issues to stop someone mid-transition. I think this was probably just an oversight and not considering that situation. And we have to take in mind that stopping someone in process could likely cause mental health issues. So with that, I move my amendment.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion fails. Back on the bill. Further question or comment? Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Petty.
We are still waiting for, we are still waiting for one amendment.
One more.
For it.
We'll return to ease. We will return to order. Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the body for being patient as we were waiting on the amendment to get through. So patients, families, and their doctors should have the right to make their own private medical decisions, not politicians. Everyone should have the right to access health care that they need to survive and thrive without government interference. This bill failed last year because it was extremely broad, had broad reach, and if it becomes into law, it will hurt vulnerable Kansans. So in the trying to compromise and come to an agreement, I do have an amendment, and it is 0915.
Thank you. We'll pause just a minute for distribution. Senator Johnson, would you like it read or would you like to explain?
I will explain it. I think everyone in this chamber agrees that access to mental health care and counseling is vital for children who are going through issues with their gender, and we want them to have the counseling that they need. And in Kansas, we have a very rigorous path that someone going through making these decisions has to go through. I think they would be going through 2 years of mental health before they were even recommended to go to a clinic to have further discussion. Puberty blockers are reversible. These are things that allow families and medical providers time to consider. So with this amendment, what we're doing is just banning surgeries, but allowing for families to have authority over their medical decisions. With that, I would be happy to stand for questions.
The questions for the Senator from Johnson. Seeing none. Senator from Lynn, are you seeking recognition? I'm going to take that as a no. Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe that the senator from Johnson may have stood up first, and I didn't know if she had a comment or.
She's the carrier of the bill.
Okay. Then I have a question for the other senator from Johnson. My understanding is this would ban the performance of surgery in the bill, but not the puberty blockers and other ways to address concerns.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
That is correct.
Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. President. So it's also my understanding that surgery is really not used as a procedure for this under individuals who are younger than 18. Is that correct?
Senator from Johnson.
That is my understanding as well, but as conversations with people, they think that we should wait until these individuals pass that 18th birthday. So this is allowing them the supports that they need, but not having that final transition.
Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's my understanding, and because it's not happening, I don't see any harm in helping everyone else understand that those surgical procedures are not now happening for individuals this age in our state. So I think this is a very appropriate amendment, and thank the senator for bringing it.
Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Petty.
Thank you. And would the senator from Johnson stand for a question?
She's standing.
So with this amendment, would it better protect mental health workers when working with students who may, and they're involved with social transitioning, to talk to them but not be providing, well, which they couldn't do, surgery anyway, but providing counseling that they couldn't do currently in the bill?
Senator from Johnson.
Thank you for the question. Yes, that is my understanding. I think there is some confusion in the bill on what kind of talk therapy and things like that that providers are able to provide for individuals who are going through gender dysphoria. So this is clear. It's allowing those conversations, the mental health, that talk therapy, and just banning the surgeries.
Senator from Wyandotte.
I think that's a very important distinction, because currently the bill, it appears that within the bill that if a healthcare provider at any level provides information to a young person, and they're working in a public setting, or they are receiving any kind of public dollars, that they would be in violating the Senate Bill 63. And we know that we have mental health services within our the school settings currently, and I believe that often a counselor could be put in a position where they would be talking to a student and providing information to make that student feel more comfortable in their setting, which could be construed as being social transitioning information. In fact, it's just providing the mental health care that student needs. Whether that be calling them by their preferred noun or the preferred pronoun, or just not commenting on their dress. So I think we need to be very careful about how we are restricting those that are providing for the mental health of our children in any setting, particularly in our public setting. So this just this amendment helps to clarify that even more.
Further questions for the Senator from Johnson? Senator from Johnson, Senator Holscher.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to stand in support of the amendment and point out this is the second or third year, I believe, hearing this bill. And once again, the proponents were a small group of professional conferees, including individuals and organizations from out of state. However, we had hundreds of opponents to the actual bill from Kansas who showed up to oppose. In light of that, I support this amendment because it does help provide clarification that is very much needed.
Further questions for the Senator from Johnson or comments? Seeing none, Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes, you may close on your amendment.
Thank you. Again, I do think this is a good compromise. It is trying to, I think there are unintended consequences, and I do think our mental health providers are going to get caught in this wherever they cannot have those conversations with youth, or they're going to have severe repercussions of that, possibly even losing their license because of some of the language. So with that, I will move my amendment.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. No. Motion fails. Back on the bill. Further questions for the Senator from Johnson, Senator Gossage, on the underlying bill? Seeing none, Senator from Johnson, do you have any closing remarks?
I do, Mr. President. One of the testimonies that we received was from Dr. Van Meter. Dr. Van Meter is the immediate past president of the American College of Pediatrics. He's also a board-certified pediatric endocrinologist and an adjunct associate professor of pediatrics at Morehouse School of Medicine. He is not only a pediatric endocrinologist, but for the last 46 years of experience with children, and more recently in the novel field of transgender. And I will just quote a couple of places from his testimony. He said no test exists. We heard earlier that once they're determined that they truly are transgender, there is no test that exists for the diagnosis of biologic basis for transgender. It is just solely based on the opinion of the child or the adolescent, who's often influenced by social media or an adult in their life. Also, he goes on to say the only truly compassionate care is to provide in-depth evaluation of mental health of the patient and the family, to provide counseling to resolve all underlying depression and anxiety and other issues. Of course, this bill absolutely allows that. He also mentions that the so-called standards of care are actually only guidelines that are promoted by activists within the professional society based on opinion and absolutely no scientific data or studies. 67,000 members of the American Academy of Pediatrics had no input into that organization's policy statement. Finally, he mentions that puberty blockers are not a pause and they are not reversible. He mentions that no validly designed published study shows more benefit than harm from any of these so-called treatments, which are interventions. These children, make no mistake, are sterilized. And then he finally says, detransitioners have been bullied into silence, but have finally found their voice, both online and by bringing lawsuits against those who sent them down this transition pathway. And finally, he states, by approving Senate Bill 63, Kansas will join the brave, forward-thinking group of states, currently 23, who have, like the majority of European countries, seen the need to protect the suffering transgender children and adults from harm, adolescents, excuse me. Therefore, my colleagues, I urge you to be on the right side of history. In the last 3 years that I have been working on this issue, we've seen more and more countries, states, associations, organizations backing away from this form of treatment. You'll be on the right side of history. I urge you to vote for Senate Bill 63. Thank you, Mr. President.
We'll hold for final action. We're now ready for final action on this measure. Roll call, we will take, on this measure, on this roll call, we'll take the following. Senate Bill 63. Clerk will read the title.
Senate Bill number 63, an act concerning children and minors.
Clerk will call the roll.
Alley. Argabright. Billinger. Blasey. Blue. Bowers. Bowser. Clays from Saline. Clays from Sedgwick. Clifford. Corson. Dietrich. Erickson. Fag. Faust-Gudot. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Holscher. Klemp. Cluse. Masterson. Murphy. Owens. Peck. Peterson. Petty. Rose. Reichman. Schmidt. Schallenberger. Shane. Starnes. Sykes. Thomas. Thompson. Titus. Tyson. Ware. Warren.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Does any senator wish to explain their vote? Senator from Johnson, Senator Holscher.
Thank you, Mr. President. I vote no, as this bill is extreme and expands far beyond a ban on certain kinds of health care. Additionally, I would contend this bill does not reflect the will of the people of Kansas. We had hundreds of Kansans, young and old, rural and urban, from all walks of life, who gave testimony against it. Every major medical association, including the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, support gender-affirming care and oppose bills like this. Part of the issue with this bill, though, is it effectively overrules decisions made by parents in partnership with healthcare professionals, the actual experts regarding gender-affirming care. This bill inserts politicians into these highly personal private healthcare situations, and that is against the values of Kansans.
Further explanation. Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. President. With her permission, I'd like to join the senator from Johnson on her remarks.
So ordered. Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Petty.
Thank you. I'd like to join the senator from Johnson on her remarks as well.
So ordered. Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to join the remarks with the senator from Johnson as well.
So ordered. Further explanation. Are there changes? Seeing none, clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. On a vote of 32 in favor and 8 opposed to the passage of Senate Bill 63, this measure, having reached a constitutional majority, is hereby declared passed. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader from Sedgwick, Senator Blasey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move an emergency be declared, the rules suspended, and Senate Concurrent Resolution 1602 be advanced to final action, subject to amendment, debate, and roll call.
For the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. To carry SCR 1602, Chair recognizes the senator from Johnson, Senator Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move we adopt the committee report.
You heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Report's adopted. Senator for Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a concurrent resolution encouraging the governor to fully cooperate with the policies of the Trump administration in enforcing federal immigration laws. I do want to mention that you notice some of the strike-throughs and the massaging of the language of this resolution. I felt like our committee did a good job tweaking it to express the intent and sentiment of the committee as it came out. So I believe the cleanest way to explain this is by simply reading the statements, and then we can go from there. So whereas the state of Kansas is committed to upholding the rule of law and ensuring the safety and security of its citizens, and whereas illegal immigration leads to severe repercussions for our entire state, including threats to public safety and public health via human trafficking, the deadly fentanyl crisis, and strains on public resources, and whereas the Trump administration has expressed a commitment to enforce immigration laws via a historic operation led by his border czar, including deportation, and whereas the main priority of this massive operation is the deportation of illegal immigrants who have committed crimes, whereas this effort is a bipartisan effort, as is evidenced by the bipartisan support of the Laken-Riley Act, including by our entire congressional delegation, and whereas collaboration between state and federal authorities is essential for effective and efficient enforcement and to address the myriad challenges associated with illegal immigration, And whereas many states are at the forefront of the effort to secure the United States borders and work with the Trump administration to do so, and Kansas needs to join this effort. Whereas some states and local jurisdictions have indicated they will resist the Trump administration's efforts to secure the border and deport illegal immigrants. And whereas Kansas thus needs to make it clear that we stand united in support of the Trump administration's efforts to secure the border of the United States, stop illegal immigration, and protect our communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the state of Kansas, the House of Representatives concurring therein, that the legislature strongly urges the governor to fully cooperate with the Trump administration in enforcing immigration laws in the state of Kansas, including the deportation of illegal immigrants, and be it further resolved that the legislature encourages the governor to use her lawful authority to help secure the United States borders, including offering assistance through the Kansas National Guard, as stated in resolutions adopted by the legislature in 2024. Be it further resolved that the legislature will continue to support efforts aimed at securing the United States borders and reducing illegal immigration while fostering a legal immigration system that meets the needs of the state and our country. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State shall send an enrolled copy of this resolution to the governor, members of the Kansas congressional delegation, President Donald J. Trump, and relevant federal entities to promote awareness and collaboration on this vital issue. Before I stand for questions, I do have a technical amendment. It is Amendment 0879, and I believe that amendment is ready.
We will hold for distribution. Sir, since it's technical, will you just like to explain it?
Absolutely. We just struck one word, and it was on line 1 of page 2, the word her. So it would read that the legislature encourages the governor to use lawful authority to help secure the border of the United States borders. So it was just that one word tweak. That was it, Mr. President.
Questions for the Senator from Johnson? Seeing none, move your amendment.
I move my amendment.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Ready for questions?
I'm ready for questions, yes.
Questions for the Senator from Johnson? Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Haley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank Senator from Johnson, Senator Thompson, for bringing this measure, because I think it's probably good to look at federal initiatives that have been made and others that will be made from the administration, the new administration, and see how and where they overlap or they affect us and how we adopt or deny or not work in concert with them. So I'm appreciative for the early discussion early in the session, though we're moving at breakneck speed, Mr. President, because this is one that, frankly, may or may not have some merit. We know from the administration out of Washington that it was a campaign commitment or campaign promise, and at least to my eyes and many others, the new president or the president has moved with great diligence, great alacrity in fulfilling the campaign promise that he made to evaluate, deport, and to remove those who are found in our country, and specifically to this resolution, this bill. Is it a resolution or a bill, Mr. President? I don't have a copy of it.
It's a resolution.
Thank you. This resolution in our state. Full disclosure, I represent the 4th Senate District proudly. We're located in Kansas City, Kansas. And Kansas City, Kansas, the 4th Senate District has one of the distinctions, according to 2 consecutive biennial census, to be one of the most diverse ethnically in the country. I think we're 4th or 5th. You know, there's one in Florida, Broward County. There's one in California, outside of LA, Brooklyn, New York. And then Kansas is number 4. We go back and forth between us and Minnesota, St. Paul, Minneapolis, in the country. And I say this in reference to this resolution because there are a lot of people of different cultures, different nationalities, probably more so than, certainly more so than most of your districts, which are probably by and large pretty much homogenized or solo in their ethnic and cultural and racial background and makeup. I'm diverse. I represent diversity. I represent diversity like very few others in this country here in Kansas. Many of the people that are found there, I've never asked, well, I do when I'm knocking on doors, if they're able to vote. But honestly, until this edict has come out after the coronation or the inauguration, that we will be rounding up citizens or residents and delineating why or how they're here, it just really wasn't something that I paid too close attention to, Mr. President. But it's starting to get real. I'm sure all of us have read or are beginning to read or understand that there have been or has been and will continue to be some follow-up, and that we have people within many communities, and perhaps disproportionately there will be in Kansas, in my community, in my district, who are being questioned, stopped, detained, and potentially going through the proceedings of being removed from our blocks, our neighborhoods. And Mr. President, you know, I believe in a path that should be struck. I believe in lawfulness. I believe, too, that, as has been said, and it's a cliche you probably have done, Mr. President, on there, well, if somebody breaks into your house, and even if they break into your house and they help you out with some of the work around the house, and I heard someone say if they help do your dishes or clean some things up, the fact still remains that they committed a crime in coming there. And I kind of subscribe to some of that. It depends on what kind of the tasks they are doing when they have come, and what kind of contribution they're making, at least in my mind, to the community, to the fabric of society. Is it a drain, is my question, or is it augmenting, helping? Is it helping to move forward fabric of our community? Is it helping with our economy? Is it positive or negative? And that assessment is still out. The fact still remains with some who are basically saying, well, you broke in, you broke the law. You're not law-abiding, no matter what you do, no matter how you help, because you should have gone through procedures in another way. I've heard that. I even get it. But my concern is this, and I think this is the question I'm getting to after this probably painfully lengthy prologue, Mr. President, for some of you. We've heard differing things, and some of which some of us may subscribe to, and others of us may never. And the question I have for the carrier of this resolution, Senator from Johnson, Senator Thompson, what type of intervention for the purpose of removal will be implemented? And let me clarify. I heard, and others did, that it was the intent of this new administration to move criminals out, to find those that have a lawlessness. You know, I mean, the ones that are bringing drugs, bringing crime, the ones that are, you know, eating our cats, eating our dogs, those that are really causing mayhem and who are conducting crimes to remove. Is that what the intent, even by the adopted amendment, the technical amendment, lawfulness that we want to see through this resolution to assist the removal of criminal only, first and foremost, or just everyday residents, if you will, because they certainly are not citizens?
Senator from Johnson, Senator Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's a big question. Obviously, I can't speak for what the federal government is going to do with ICE. The Attorney General did testify before the committee and express the fact that, they have limited resources. Our local law enforcement also have limited resources. So I think the first wave of people they're going to be able to identify and help to deport will be those criminals, those folks who pose a threat to our communities. But in the long run, there are other things to consider as well. It's the cost of the social fabric that these people are imposing on everyday Kansans here. It's estimated conservatively 104,000 illegal aliens that live in Kansas, and just in 2023 alone cost us, because of the pressure on our healthcare system, our social safety network, education, policing, corrections, healthcare, whatever, that we paid around $603 million in taxpayer dollars just in Kansas alone in 2023. So it's much bigger than just the criminals. And of course, the ones who have known criminal records, that's easy to find. But there may be other people here that we don't know. They've come from all over. We've had, estimates as high as 20 million come over the border in the last 20 years. So you've got that situation. The other comment that I thought was interesting is that, and I agree with, they're here and the first thing they do is break the law. So these people are forced to live in the shadows. And we're also concerned about the victims of human and sex trafficking. And they may be unwilling to come forward because they're worried. And they may be moved around the country. So we don't know who is here. We don't know what is going on. And so I think as efforts continue, the first wave is going to be those criminals. But the second wave will be necessarily those who are here illegally and do put there's a price tag on having them here. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Wyandotte.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank Senator Thompson, Senator from Johnson, for those statistics. And I guess, at least from my standpoint, I don't know what's happening in his neck of the woods, but the contributions too that many people, irrespective of their quote legal unquote status as residents or in the community, is phenomenal. I mean, at least in my world, in again my area, the contributions to several ethnicities. I'm not limiting to one in particular. I do know, I should say statistically, 50% plus happen to be from one particular area, that being Central and South America. But of course, they're from others. I've heard that as a stat. I don't know, it's not an exact science, but for those who are from those particular areas, all across the board, from the work ethic and from the ability to transform architecture, from the ability to be diligent, to be all of, frankly, the things to which I would think many of us aspire to and would like to see in our workforce, has been exemplary. And I don't think that this was something they did because they said, well, I've broken the law to be here, so I have to show myself to be that diligent. It seems to be endemic across the board. So the thing is, to the stats that were given, you just have to wonder, what do those who are here in that status contribute to what taxes are being paid from their work ethic? What contributions to our sales, probably in some cases to the income tax, certainly to our real property tax bases where, and I guess I'm going against the argument a little bit here because frankly in older neighborhoods where the transformation has been done to some of the older structures and properties that are there, the ripple effect has been the appraisals going up for all, even those homes that have not been transformed. So there's had a margin of increasing the value of our real properties in our neighborhoods to a person, from a culture. I know, Mr. President, you used to be a builder, and probably back in your day, you helped work on some structures and build them up, but the quality and insight and care from some particular populations that are here, and I don't stop, frankly, and ask some of them who are here what their status is, if they broke in to do it. I look at the work they do, I look at the quality and the concern and the practice that they give, and look at the contribution to the social fabric, to this network. I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna yield, actually, Mr. President, as an aside. You know, I grew up, I'm not gonna go through one of those in my day things, I'm not the oldest one, but when I grew up, I remember the holiday season, just little things, you know? Used to be all up and down the block, you know? We kept Christmas with lights and trees, and, you know, I had the kids and everything, and, you know, they were coming along. And as time goes on, you know, the kids go up, go around, everything, and things change. I drive up and down the streets in my area, my district during this holiday season, and almost to a person, almost to a house, the ones that were keeping Christmas bright, the ones that really were happy and a part of the social fabric of the continuity of a community that they were helping to transform, did not happen to be originally from my district, from the state, and many places, options from this country. What I'm saying is this subsequent generation, and maybe ones that's here, no matter how they got here and what they're doing, they're making a difference, and it's a positive difference, usually, to the social and economic well-being of Kansas, certainly to Kansas City, Kansas. And for us to adopt, without some parameters, who and what we ostracize and how we marginalize and deport, for those who, whatever the statute of limitations might be, broke in, unquote, I don't think is very, I think it's short-sighted. I would love to see and would join this resolution with my full support if it were indeed I don't know if they were those that are indeed have some criminal element or something, some reason to, I would, if they were keeping the general spirit that was built and that was represented during the campaign, I would help and would want to and put some of my folks out there who handle Kansas City to help to remove the criminals that may be in our midst, whether it's from drugs or prostitution or cannibalism or bestiality or whatever it is that they're accused of, whatever crimes they were accused of in their country or on our shores. But everyday hardworking citizens and families who are making a contribution that no one can deny is positive and uplifting and contributing economically to our well-being without something in between concerns me. It concerns me with this. And I don't want to see my law enforcement be enlisted with their limited resources. Lord knows, law enforcement has a difficult time enough as it is. By the way, Kansas City, Kansas, our law enforcement is exemplary. We have one of the lowest crime rates that we've had in many years. And law enforcement under our Chief Oakman, and our mayor, we have all resolved cases. All these cases are resolved that are outstanding. The crimes are resolved from, well, that was fiscal 23. I don't know about 24 yet, so I may stand corrected. But 23 was excellent. So this resolution, if adopted, will burden law enforcement or inflict on our local and of course our state law enforcement to have to step up to harass, to process, and to remove what are the law-abiding citizens who are making a contribution to the economy and the social fabric of the community. And law enforcement, you know, I'm not saying there's no such thing as profiling. Lord knows, nobody knows about profiling by law enforcement in this chamber better than I. But to be singled out and for someone to have to say, well, let me find out or investigate whether this law-abiding, hard-working citizen or family, student, is breaking the law or not contributing to it because of their status or because of how they look or because of how they talk. Well, I just see Lady Liberty packing her bags, man. I mean, she's just carrying some satchels out of here, you know. The statue is packing her bags. We need to put in place, instead of this, methodologies from within our governmental system to determine what citizens and residents are doing, not because of their status. We need to put in place the removal, and not to burden our law enforcement. Our law enforcement should be respected. Our law enforcement should be allowed to conduct their business and allowed to do that without fear of retribution. I very much appreciate where we have our law enforcement, whether they're here in this chamber, Mr. Cackler, whether they're here in this building, whether they're here in the city and state, and to not overburden them and to say that we do respect what our men and women in blue do to protect us and to serve us. They really do, to put their lives out there for us, than to say, oh, okay, we need you to be the police to determine whether or not somebody some time ago came across the border without paper. It's disrespectful to law enforcement, I think. It's disrespectful to our men and women in blue who really sign up to be that kind of monitor, the hall monitor, to clean up a mess that really isn't theirs, despite what it is. And speaking of which, I think that reminds me, I'd like to yield on that point of law and order to the senator from Shawnee, Senator Schmidt, who may have a comment regarding law and order and the police, or law enforcement.
So as the yield goes to Senator Shawnee, we're starting to make sure as you oscillate, you're still addressing the chair. And I would remind the people, as we debate things like this, to stay generally focused on the bill at hand. You can wander too far afield. I thought you were, but Senator Shawnee.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to my good friend, the senator from Wyandotte. Hard to follow in those oratorical footsteps. Mr. President, I move to amend 1602 with 0866.
Sorry, side conversation. Did you have a question or comment?
Mr. President, I move to amend 1602.
Gotcha. You got it turned in?
With 0866.
We will hold for that to be distributed. Senator Shawnee, would you like your amendment read or would you like to explain?
Yes, Mr. President, if the amendment could be read.
Reader will please read the amendment.
Mr. President, I move to amend SCR 1602 as amended by the Senate Committee on page 1 by striking all in lines 5 through 36, on page 2 by striking all in lines 1 through 12, following line 12 by inserting, quote, whereas on January 20th, 2025, President Trump issued blanket pardons to and commuted the sentences of more than 1,500 people who face prosecution for their involvement in the violent attack on law enforcement officers at the United States Capitol building on January 6, 2021. And whereas the people who were pardoned or granted commuted sentences faced criminal prosecution or were already serving sentences for being convicted of crimes including assault and battery of law enforcement officers and crimes involving the use of deadly weapons against law enforcement officers. And whereas law enforcement officers in Kansas put their lives at risk every day in order to protect Kansans across the state, and a specialized group of members of the Kansas Highway Patrol protect the people in our Kansas State Capitol building. And whereas the state of Kansas prides itself on protecting our law enforcement officers who risk their lives daily to protect Kansans by criminalizing violence against law enforcement officers and having enhanced sentencing provisions for those who commit violence against a law enforcement officer. And whereas it is important that we send a message to the law enforcement officers across Kansas that we condemn the issuance of pardons for those who commit violence against law enforcement officers and believe that such individuals should be held accountable for their actions. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the State of Kansas, the House of Representatives concurring therein, that we condemn the pardons and commutations of sentences for those involved in violence against law enforcement officers during the violent attack on the United States Capitol building on January 6, 2021, and be it further resolved that the Secretary of the State shall send enrolled copies of this resolution to Senator Schmidt, the Kansas Fraternal Order of the Police, the Kansas Sheriff's Association, and the United States Congressional Delegation from Kansas, end quote. On page 1, in the title in line 1, by striking all after resolution, by striking all in line 2, in line 3, and by striking all before the period and inserting, quote, condemning the pardons and commutations of sentences for those individuals involved in the violent attack on law enforcement officers at the United States Capitol building on January 6, 2021, end quote.
Questions for the senator from Shawnee? Senator from Johnson, Senator Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really, before I complete my thoughts on this, I think it's incomplete because there should have been a whereas clause that condemns President Biden's commuting of sentences for people who have committed crimes, including his own family. And with that, I will challenge the germaneness of this. This materially alters the entire intent of the resolution.
Germaneness has been challenged. The Rules Committee will convene. I would note, change to the Rules Committee. Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren has been appointed to join the Rules Committee in place of Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Peterson. Chair recognizes the Chair of the Rules Committee, Vice President Schallenberger.
Thank you, Mr. President. After careful consideration, the committee rules it's not germane.
Been ruled non-germane. We're back on the underlying bill. Senator from Shawnee, you still have the floor.
Mr. President, I move to challenge the ruling.
Motion is moved to challenge the rule. I need a refresher of my parliamentarian. It is a non-debatable motion. A yes vote sustains the ruling of the chair. A no vote would drop the ruling of the chair, and they would determine that the amendment was germane. So that a yes vote sustains the ruling of the chair. A no vote would counter that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The rule of the chair is sustained. You still have the floor, Senator from Shawnee.
Mr. President, are we able to get a roll call?
If you get 5 hands. 5 hands being seen, we will roll call vote the ruling on the chair. For clarity, this vote we're about to cast, the same thing, right? Yes vote sustains that this is not a vote on the amendment. This is a vote on, or the underlying resolution. This is a vote on the ruling of the chair on germaneness. We're waiting for the computer. All right, clerk will call the roll.
Alley. Argabright. Billinger. Blasey. Blue. Bowers. Bowser.
Aye.
Glaze from Celine. Glaze from Sedgwick. Clifford. Corson. Dietrich. Erickson. Fag. Fascudo. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Holscher. Klemp. Cluse. Masterson. Murphy. Owens. Heck. Peterson. Petty. Rose. Reichman. Schmidt. Schallenberger. Shane. Starnes. Sykes. Thomas. Thompson. Titus. Tyson. Ware. Warren.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Does any senator wish to explain their vote? Do you, Senator from Shawnee, wish to explain your vote?
I would just reiterate, Mr. President, that in light of the fact that we have already had people pardoned that have had physical altercations with the police, and certainly having been there on January 6, 2021, while I was stationed there as a naval intelligence officer, and seeing Capitol police officers and Washington, D.C. police fight to the inch of their lives to protect the Capitol and the greatest attack in this country's history by its own countrymen since Fort Sumter, 164 years ago this year. I think it's important that this body stand in support of law enforcement.
Further explanation? Senator Wyandotte, are you seeking explanation?
Thank you for the invitation. I guess I will, since I was up.
It was involuntary. You were staying.
But it was peaceful. Thank you. And explain my vote. You know, normally I support the rules of the chair. For a brief while, I was the only attorney in this chamber. It was down to one. And as a former assistant district attorney and one who's always supported the right to self-defense, I've become concerned that we have been complicit in suspending and not protecting our institutions and not protecting those who violently assault our institutions. Were it to happen here in this Capitol building, were our law enforcement to be attacked, and were a governor subsequent to that would commute the sentences of those violent people that made us here in this chamber less safe, I'd be at odds, at war with that governor, whomever he or she would be. Why are we, again, because I respect, I was at an institution last night with law enforcement, this is wildly unpopular to suspend and to grant and commute sentences for violent actors, violence against our buildings. against our people and against our law enforcement, and to not
Senator,
stand.
you're running afoul. It's explanation to vote on the rules. Chair's ruling.
Well, this is the reason for my vote against, unprecedented almost, the ruling of this committee on the parliamentary as to whether or not this should be adopted. And that's why I did, Mr. President. However, I am beyond my 200 words, or somewhere thereabout, and will yield. But unprecedentedly, I vote no on upholding the ruling of the court.
For the explanation of vote on the rulings, Chair. Seeing none, are there changes? Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Thirty-one having voted in favor and 9 opposed, the ruling of the Rules Chair is sustained. We're back on the resolution. Further questions for the senator from Johnson.
Mr. President, point of
Senator from Wyandotte.
Sir, if I understand correctly, was not or is not Senator from Shawnee, does he still have the floor?
No, because we went to a vote. However, I don't know which one of the 3 of you were up first, so if you want it, Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Haley.
I had not sat during the entirety of it, so if Senator from Shawnee is through it, comes back, if I understand correctly, to my being here, and I'll be brief, Mr. President and members, to the underlying resolution that's before us, I would hope that we would further clarify what actions we would impose on our citizenry by our already overly burdened law enforcement that would specify the individuals who should be singled out, and they and or their families and communities to be assisted with the federal edict. And that we have some secondary thoughts about those who are truly making contributory measures across our districts, both urban in mine and rural in many of yours, agriculturally and otherwise, before we begin that process, we augment it with our already overburdened law enforcement. It is for that reason I do not support this resolution, and I hope that a policy will emerge, though, from it when you all pass it, that will look at those that we all truly hope to see removed, regardless of their ethnicity or their national heritage. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further questions for the senator from Johnson. Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to start by thanking the president, or the senator from Johnson, for the hearing that was held on SCR 1602, and all the members of the committee, because if you have a chance to review that work, the chair and the committee members were very diligent in going through the resolution and making some changes, and I appreciate that very much. I have heard, and certainly the senator from Wyandotte emphasized, that we do want the focus on these efforts to be on immigrants who have committed criminal acts during their time in the United States. We have a situation, one of the whereas, and this is the one starting on line 13, referring to the federal operation, says the main priority of this massive operation is the deportation of illegal immigrants. who have committed crimes. However, the be it resolved, starting on line 31, urges the governor to fully cooperate with the Trump administration in enforcing immigration laws in the state of Kansas, including the deportation of illegal immigrants. I would like the resolution to also focus on those immigrants who have committed criminal acts after entering the United States in the be it resolved, and it's what we're intending to do in Kansas. And to that, I have an amendment. I have turned it in.
Do you have the number?
0895.
We'll pause to distribute. Would you like to explain the amendment further or have it read?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to explain the amendment. So this simply addresses that whereas, or be it resolved, starting on line 31. But when it talks about urging the governor to fully cooperate, this says including the deportation of illegal immigrants, and this amendment would say focusing on, and then after immigrants, inserting who have committed a criminal act while in the United States in addition to the act of entering the country illegally. Stand for any questions.
Questions for the Senator from Douglas? Senator Johnson, do you have any questions?
More of a comment. And first of all, I want to recognize and appreciate the comments from the Senator from Douglas and recognize her efforts in tweaking the original resolution. She did a great job on that, as she frequently does. However, in this particular case, I believe by amending this language, it narrows the scope of the sentiment of just on the criminal element, whereas we've already discussed some of the other burdens on society. And to be honest, everyone who has crossed that border illegally is by nature a criminal. So I think it alters the intent enough that I don't support this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further comment or question on the amendment? Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Haley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the maker of the amendment stand for a question?
She is.
Thank you. So, Mr. President, Senator from Douglas, in reading this, first blush, focusing on, would that be to the exclusion of everyone in general? Is it your intent that focusing on would exclude the broader penumbra of those who haven't? Does that in any way mitigate by focusing on, real criminals? Does that somehow mitigate the broader intent or the current intent of the resolution?
Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it sets the resolution as saying that we are focusing on. When you just say including, then it can include a lot of different things. And so you're just naming one thing. And I think this does limit the other activities because rather than all the illegal immigrants, we are saying we want to focus on those that have just had a criminal act. And I did intend it to really narrow and not be as broad as wanting to deport every illegal immigrant who's in Kansas at this point, because I agree with some of the comments of the senator from Wyandotte earlier. There are a number of people who have been upstanding members of our community and may have been brought early in their lives and find their homes here.
Senator from Wyandotte.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. President and Senator from Douglas. So will we have, if this amendment is adopted, I'm looking at those who've committed criminal, in addition to the act of entering the country illegally, what if they were found to have been criminals or have a criminal act prior to coming, or if they're, I mean, what I think right now, Mr. President, is we deport, right now there's already in play those who are currently found to not be legally in the country, but who commit an act, deport, part of usually is to seize, hold, and they do time in our facilities, and then oftentimes it's deportation that augments that. So I guess the question is there a larger net that could be cast for acts prior to entering that were criminal, or for even those that weren't fully adjudicated, but that for which were charged, that this amendment might catch as well?
Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment does not catch those. Certainly there could be additional amendments that would address that particular issue. This focuses on those individuals that we have a record of through our law enforcement, that they have committed an illegal act or a criminal act while in the United States.
Senator from Wyandotte.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think this is a good addition, and it really does clarify what I think most of us and most Americans want to see in terms of what the policy is. I think it hits the nail on the head, and I do support it. Thank you.
Further questions for the senator from Douglas? Seeing none, you may move your amendment or close.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the comments again from the senator from Johnson, but I don't think that this really does change this, because there are two, be it resolved, one that addresses the illegal immigrants that this does, and the other addresses securing the borders. And because of that, I think the intent of the resolution would remain the same, except for asking for the focus on those immigrants who have committed a second criminal act. I move the amendment.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion fails. Back
Roll
on.
call.
That roll call sounded like a question. Seeing 5 hands, roll call's in order. The clerk will call the roll.
Alley. Argabright. Billinger. Lazy. Blue. Bowers. Bowser. Clays from Saline. Clays from Sedgwick. Clifford. Corson. Dietrich. Erickson. Fag. Faust-Gudot. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Holscher. Klemp. Cluse. Masterson. Murphy. Owens, Peck, Peterson, Petty, Rose, Reichman, Schmidt, Schallenberger, Shane, Starnes, Sykes, Thomas, Thompson, Titus, Tyson, Ware, Warren.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Senator from Sherman? Senator from Finney? No. Does every senator have an opportunity to vote? Does any senator wish to explain their vote? Change their vote? Seeing none, clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. On a vote of 9 in favor and 31 opposed, the amendment is not adopted. Back on the underlying resolution, further questions for the Senator from Johnson. Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you, Mr. President. No questions, just some comments. I honestly believe this resolution is a waste of our time and resources. This issue can only be solved at the federal level and not through a non-binding resolution from the legislature. Make no mistake that I have long supported immigration reform, which includes securing the border and deporting dangerous criminals. I actually went to one of our refugee resettlement things in Kansas City to have a better understanding of our current system and some challenges that we have. But this resolution goes further. Immigration has saved rural Kansas from disappearing. Immigrants contribute to our culture and our economy, especially in Southwest Kansas. In 2019, immigrants in the region held $595.4 million in spending power and paid $112.8 million in federal taxes. Immigrants also represented 61% of manufacturing workers, boosting our state's multi-billion-dollar beef industry. Immigrants also fill labor shortages in our construction industry in our state. So people have moved to Kansas to work hard and make life better for the next generation, bringing new energy, new ideas that have made our state stronger. This resolution takes us in the wrong direction, and I urge the body to vote no.
Further comments? Questions? Seeing none, Senator from Johnson, Senator Thompson, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hate to belabor this long journey down this path this afternoon. I do want to make a couple very quick points. Number one, yesterday there were a number, I believe it was yesterday, a number of brand new citizens sworn in the rotunda. These are people who came here, followed the rule of law to become U.S. citizens, the arduous path that it takes. And it is an affront and an insult to those people that we allow 20 million people to cross over illegally and to infuse themselves into society. I know a number of people who've come here legally. I have good friends who own businesses in my district. One of my friends is from Pakistan originally. His wife is from Siberia, of all places. And they, more than anyone else, understand the promise of America. They came here because they escaped places where they do not respect the rule of law. Without the rule of law, we have no sovereignty. We have no borders. And I want to conclude before I move this bill by reading from one of our founders, not my favorite founder, but he makes some very good points, Alexander Hamilton. And I quote, "The safety of a republic depends essentially on the energy of a common national sentiment, on a uniformity of principles and habits, on the exemption of the citizens from foreign bias and prejudice, and on the love of country, which will almost invariably be found to be closely connected with birth, education, and family. The opinion advanced in the Notes of Virginia is undoubtedly correct, that foreigners will generally be apt to bring with them attachments to the persons they've left behind, to the country of their nativity, and to its particular customs and manners. They will also entertain opinions on government congenial with those under which they have lived, or if they should be hither from a preference to ours, how extremely unlikely it is that they will bring with them that temperament of love of liberty so essential to real republicanism. I couldn't have said it better myself. The one thing we haven't discussed this afternoon is assimilation. When you have that many people moving into this country, many hiding in the shadows, there's no attempt to assimilate. They need to go home. They need to, if they want to come back to this country because they believe in liberty and love this country, they need to come in fully, legally, go through the same process those people did yesterday on the rotunda floor, and then we can celebrate them being here and contributing to our society. With that, I thank you for this debate, and with that, I move Senate Concurrent Resolution 1602 as amended.
We'll hold for final action. We are now ready for final action. On this roll call, we'll take the following. SCR 1602. Clerk will read the title.
Senate Concurrent Resolution number 1602, a concurrent resolution encouraging the governor to fully cooperate with the policies of the Trump administration in enforcing federal immigration law.
Clerk will call the roll.
Alley. Argabright. Billinger. Lazy. Blue. Bowers. Bowser. Glaze from Celine. Glaze from Sedgwick. Clifford. Corson. Dietrich. Erickson. Fag. Fascudo. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Holscher. Klemp. Cluse. Masterson.
Aye.
Murphy. Owens. Peck. Peterson. Petty. Rose. Reichman. Schmidt. Schallenberger. Shane. Starnes. Sykes. Thomas. Thompson. Titus. Tyson. Ware. Warren.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Does any senator wish to explain their vote or change their vote? Seeing none, clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. On a vote of 31 in favor and 9 opposed to the passage of SCR 1602, this measure having reached its constitutional majority is hereby declared passed. The introduction of bills and concurrent resolutions, clerk will read.
Senate Bill number 97 by the Committee on Transportation, an act concerning motor vehicles. Senate Bill number 98 by Senator Schallenberger, an act concerning motor vehicles. Senate Bill number 99 by the Committee on Government Efficiency, an act concerning the state budget. Senate Bill number 100 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning housing. Senate Bill number 101 by Senator J.R. Clays, an act concerning the Attorney General. Senate Bill number 102 by Senator Shane, an act concerning children and minors. Senate Bill number 103 by the Committee on Assessment and Taxation, an act concerning taxation. Senate Bill number 104 by the Committee on Local Government, Transparency, and Ethics, an act concerning counties. Senate Bill number 105 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning the offices of the United States Senator, State Treasurer, and the Commissioner of Insurance. Senate Bill number 106 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning veterans. Senate Bill number 107 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning sales taxation. Senate Bill number 108 by Senator Haley, an act concerning taxation. Senate Bill number 109 by the Committee on Assessment and Taxation, an act concerning sales and compensating use taxation. Senate Bill number 110 by the Committee on Judiciary, an act concerning the revised Kansas Juvenile Justice Code. And Senate Bill number 111 by the Committee on Judiciary, an act concerning children and minors. Senate Concurrent Resolution number 1607 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, a concurrent resolution making application to the Congress of the United States for a limited national convention for the exclusive purpose of proposing an amendment to the Constitution of the United States, establishing term limits for members of Congress. Senate Concurrent Resolution number 1608 by Senators J.R. Clays, Alley, and others, a proposition to amend Section 1 of Article 5 of the Constitution of the State of Kansas to require individuals to be citizens of the United States, at least 18 years of age, and a resident of the voting area in which such person seeks to vote in order to vote in this state.
This constitutes introduction of Senate Bill 97 through Senate Bill 111 and SCR 1607 and SCR 1608. Reports of standing committees. The clerk will read.
Mr. President, the Committee on Federal and State Affairs recommends Senate Bill 6 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Federal and State Affairs recommends Senate Bill 5 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Ways and Means recommends Senate Bill 14 be passed.
At this time, I'm withdrawing Senate Bill 86 from the Committee on Transportation and re-referring to the Committee on Ways and Means. Are there announcements? Chair recognizes the Majority Leader from Sedgwick, Senator Blasey.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Tomorrow, the Senate will debate and adopt, hopefully, the joint rules between the House and the Senate. And so tomorrow we'll debate House Concurrent Resolution 5003. And so Senate Republicans will caucus immediately upon adjournment. It'll be brief. I know there's going to be probably some receptions tonight, but we'll be brief, caucusing in our normal room, 548 South, immediately upon adjournment. And with that, Mr. Vice President, I yield to the Senator from Douglas.
Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The Democrats will caucus in our regular room, 287 North, upon adjournment. I yield back to the Senator from Sedgwick.
Senator from Sedgwick.
Mr. Vice President, I move the Senate adjourn until 2:30 p.m. on Thursday, January 30th, 2025.
For the motion, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We're adjourned.